Hey guys, Lee here. So today we're building a cluttered family home that's based off of the home I grew up in. And I picked this lot because I grew up in a very forested area and this was the closest I could get because most of the Sims lots are relatively rural. Even if they're in Willow Creek, they're still pretty much in like a town, which is not where I grew up. I grew up in farmland outside of a village and across from a forest. So this video is kind of long because this was a complicated build that involved me trying to memorize a lot of things from my childhood because I don't live in the house I grew up in. My parents still live there, but I do not live with my parents. And I think it turned out really well. This house ends up being a tiny bit pricey, so it's not really a starter home, it's more for an established family home. And because of the length of this build, I do end up cutting out a few minor things. You'll see I cut out the building of a garage that doesn't end up on the final product, and I also cut out the landscaping, which I usually like showing, but you'll see it at the end in the screenshots. So my house is brick, but I couldn't find a good brick that matched the actual exterior of my house, so I ended up going with a half siding, half brick because I just wanted more of the feel of the house rather than an exact copy. And I do end up struggling with the roofs for a while. I keep trying to go to that corrugated steel because that's what my roof actually is at my parents' house, but it doesn't look good in The Sims and I couldn't get it to look good. We also don't have those double roof things at the front. Uh, I do fix the height of the roof later on because you notice that it's a little bit of an awkward height with those roof accents, but it'll go away and it'll be fixed and it'll look better. So I did end up carrying the brick up top, as well as putting on white roof edges. I find that things that look good on houses in real life don't necessarily look good on houses in The Sims. And also, the house in real life is pretty plain. It's like a 1950s house, so it looks the same as all the others, and they're rectangular and brick, and not really the most attractive looking house from the street. I mean, it's not an ugly house, it just looks like a house. I try to carry some of those elements through with the just plain concrete foundation because that's what the house has, and I thought if I'm going to make this look like a family home that you might find somewhere in the country that isn't like a big expensive home, it would have that kind of like foundation to it. It would have just kind of a plain brick foundation, especially since this house lies on floodplains. So you don't want anything fancy on the foundation because it will probably just be destroyed by water anyways. I also built a basement in this. The basement is unfurnished in the version uploaded to the gallery. I explicitly made space for a rec room, a laundry room, a second bathroom, and a spare bedroom, but you will have to furnish them yourselves. I left them up to be furnished because this house was getting up there in the price, like I said earlier, and I didn't want to make it even more pricey. In fact, you can just delete the basement if you don't want it. Again, I was trying to replicate the house that I grew up in, and I do put quite a few closets in this little house, like little explicit closeted areas that just carry environmental things, so they're just all decorative. They don't actually have a function because I didn't use the actual functional closets. So again, if you don't want them, you can just get rid of them. But I do think they make the house look more realistic and look more cluttered because I tried to keep the house in a combination of what it looks like now that I'm an adult and what it looked like growing up as a kid, because I did want this to be like a more of a family house, just explicitly 3 bedrooms, four if you count the spare bedroom, and one furnished bathroom, but there are 2 bathrooms if you want. Uh, I cut out the making of the garage there because I don't end up keeping the garage because I was like, oh, I'll build this cute little garage and I'll have it for the handiness skill, and then I realized, well, that's mostly just empty space with a workbench and some decorative objects in it, and if you want the handiness skill, you could build a shed or something. So I took that out. Also, I couldn't get the stairs to work the way I wanted them to for the garage. So that was a big reason why I cut that out because it was a lot of me just struggling to get stairs to look good. And I don't think anyone's really interested in seeing that. Um, Now, the living room in the house I'm from has this really weird kind of floating wall. I do end up closing it off with archways so it looks less weird and to get rid of the floating wall that we have in real life. So it ends up looking a lot better when I do that. Again, so things that look okay in real life, they don't always look great in The Sims. One thing I did change is when I was a kid, my bedroom walls were bright green, but when I moved out, I came back and my mother had painted my walls gray and moved her desk into my room. So that was the part of the combination of the two of them. She had also moved all the dog supplies into my room. I do have bowls laid out for two dogs, and I have leashes on the walls because we always had two dogs growing up. I also uh, didn't have as much of a yard in here as I didn't do in real life because we have a pretty large yard, but it I didn't want it on an absolutely huge lot because even with the size the yard is now, you can still get all the mandatory stuff that you need in there. And I think that's okay. Yeah, you'll see me here trying to get rid of the floating wall before I actually commit to just sectioning it off. Yeah, I just sectioned it off completely. Now, what I really like about this build is the fact that it's completely functional, but it's very cluttered and it's very crowded and it feels natural, and it's probably because it had a natural influence to it, but it is like a cluttered, small, close together home, but not so small that say your Sims can't occupy the same room at the same time. And I had a lot of fun with the cabinets in this kitchen because we have a lot of cabinetry. My mother will tell you otherwise, but there is a lot of cabinetry in my house, and we have like a microwave on a floating sort of a shelf. Um, I'm not really sure why it never went on the counter. Probably because my mom really doesn't like clutter, but that's what we have. And a lot of this house isn't extravagantly patterned or anything because again I try to make more of a realistic build where realistically I don't think you would have all these crazy colors happening in a house because that's a lot to look at. The apartment I live in right now, all the walls are painted white and we never repainted them. So we've just been living with white walls that we put decorations on. So it's not as sad as it sounds. And I also put a lot more plants in this house because I really like plants everywhere. I think they're some of the best decorative objects that don't take away, the entirety of a room, sort of making everyone look at that instead of what else is in the room. And it's also a pretty cheap way to get the environment moodlet on a sim. And you don't have to commit to plants in The Sims. That's a great part about The Sims is you can fill your house with plants and not worrying about them dying because you didn't water them enough, which I'm pretty sure we've all had happen to us. I used to have a small vegetable garden at this house when I lived there, and I gardened a lot and I was really good at it. And then I went to university and I lost my gardening abilities. And now I go to help with the garden at my job and I am useless and I cannot even tell you a lot of things about gardening anymore, which actually makes me very sad because I was very into it. Now, in real life, this little closet here is a linen closet where there's towels and such, so I do use some laundry day decorations in it. Um, Again, it's all purely decorative. It's more trying to get the environment moodlet happening. I do always put in the boxes with the decorations in it because I really like decorating the outsides of the house for seasons. And I also really like playing along with the holidays, except for maybe the Harvest Fest because I don't like the gnomes and I always delete the gnomes. Sometimes I end Harvest Fest early because I cannot stand the gnomes and I hate them trashing my house and then leaving seed packets everywhere, which I don't usually garden in The Sims for unless I have Sims that specifically I've decided story-wise they are gardening. Although I really like the aesthetic of having a garden, so I will sometimes put planter pots outside and then put the landscaping like plants in it, like the lavender bushes and such, which I believe I do in this build as well. Which again, they are functional pots, and if you want to actually plant something in it, you can just delete the landscaping and put just whatever you want in it, because I will still grow things in it, of course. It'll probably grow something in it with the landscaping in it as well, but I don't think you really want to do that. And over in this corner here, after I'm done with the kitchen, we're going to put a like dining room office area. We always have a table pushed up against the wall with chairs in it. Because to be honest, we never really ate at a dining room table when I was a kid, unless it was a holiday. So I have that in the corner, but the dining room was actually more of like an office area where the computer was. And my dad is a huge nerd and he plays a lot of games, so I have a lot of posters up in this area because we have a lot of like memorabilia and little figures and such. I hate that the hutch scales like that. I want the hutch to be slightly bigger, and it becomes absolutely huge, and that's no good. In real life, that fish tank actually has a turtle in it. We've had fish before, but my brother got a turtle when he was young and then just decided he didn't want to take care of it anymore. My mom felt so bad for it that she ended up taking care of it. And it's taken her, oh God, how long was that? It's taken her 8 years of taking care of that turtle before she's finally decided that maybe she wants to like give it away to someone else. So she's trying to get rid of it right now. So I don't know how much longer that fish tank will be in the bedroom. Well, sorry, the living room, because that fish tank is huge. Because turtles take up a lot of space, and turtles need a lot of space to live. And it's just a turtle in there with a whole bunch of things that he can play with, but it's still just a turtle in a huge empty tank that we had to put over a one of those supportive beams that go all the way down into the ground because it's so heavy, there's so much water in it that if we didn't put it there, it would probably break through the floor, and that's no good. So we have a fake electric fireplace, but I wanted a real fireplace in this house, so I thought that would be, I don't know, I thought that'd be cute. I thought that'd be fun. I used a movement sheet to get the TV up to the top, and again, this house, the living room is also kind of awkwardly arranged, but I thought that was like realistic to how um, houses usually function like this because you don't always get the perfect living room shape. Sometimes you end up just kind of with a couch facing a weird area. And I think this is about when I get rid of the garage. No, I'm still using the garage? Well, it does go away eventually because it did not look good in this house and also was kind of a useless area that was just adding price to this house that was already pretty pricey for you getting basically nothing out of it. And again, I tried to section off areas of this house because it was built in the 50s. It is like oddly sectioned. I don't know who the person who designed the house thought like, oh, this would be a practical and good design for I don't know what they were thinking, and I try to emulate this little TV stand we have there, which is separate from everything else. And I just thought that maybe mismatching certain elements in a house would make it look, more interesting, more realistic. I mean, sometimes you can't find four tables that are identical when you're buying used tables because new furniture is very expensive, and I never understood why my parents always bought used furniture until I moved out, and then I realized that, oh boy, a lamp uh, at Walmart can run you like $60, and I cannot afford that. So I ended up buying lamps off of secondhand websites because we don't really have any IKEAs here. I have to go all the way to Ottawa or Toronto to get to an IKEA, and that's a really long drive just to get a $12 lamp. Um, and I don't know if I really want to spend gas money, nor do I want to try to lug a bunch of stuff back. Nor do I want to drive as long as that. So, it's used furniture it is. Almost all the furniture that I own currently is used, and I'm honestly okay with that. I do put a lot of like kids clutter around. So if just to make it look more lived in, like I have backpacks kind of thrown everywhere. I have books on the table. I try to make it look like, these are people who are working and they have kids, and it's not always going to be perfect and clean in this house, and that's okay. That's okay because it's not terribly messy in here. It's just cluttered, and that's why I called this lot literally the cluttered family home in the gallery because that's what it is. And I've gotten into a really big thing lately of always putting a wreath over the front door, just because I always feel like the front door needs something, and I don't know what to do, so I put a wreath there because I feel like it's really nice. And there's no functioning toy box in this build, I just realized that. Um, so that your Sims won't clean up the toys as clutter, but they might inventory them and carry them around. So no, you don't have to worry about them decluttering your house by putting it away, but you might have to worry about them taking it. That's if you really want that clutter to stay there. If not, then I guess that's not really a problem then, is it? And this bathroom is pretty functional. Um, I have a tendency to make very small bathrooms in my builds, but this one, since there was only one bathroom in the house, I wanted to make it larger and nicer because you have the option of having a second bathroom happening in the basement, but again, that's if you have the money to furnish it or if you're willing to cheat or whatever, because there's always the free real estate cheat. Sometimes I use that just to move Sims and I don't alter their money otherwise, but I like to move them in. And there's the many paintings in the bathroom that I had mentioned that my mother does in my first video I uploaded, which was the beach house build, where I say that I always put paintings in the bathroom because my mother did that, and it was probably the most wall decorated area of the house. Now, this is the master bedroom or the parents' bedroom, which I clutter up to represent the two sides of the different parents or the couple that lives here, whatever, because my mom's side was always very neat and very tidy, and my dad just kind of looked like he threw his clothes everywhere. So I have one side of the room that has clothes all over it because my dad was a shift worker, is a shift worker. I just said it like he was dead. He is a shift worker, so he would get up at 4 in the morning to go work, and often when he came back home, he was so tired that he would just throw his clothes everywhere. And it drove my mom insane. But also, she understood, so she never really said anything to him about it. Although I'm sure there was a few times where she had asked him to clean up his clothes because it was creating an absolute mess. And this is one of those rooms that the master bedroom isn't huge, but I feel like it's like a realistic size, and I feel like it's a nice size. I don't like large homes either in The Sims or in real life because I find that there's only so much you can clutter a room and only so much you can make like, ooh, all these weird specialized rooms before you hit a point where it's like, okay, this is getting ridiculous and this also looks bad. And people who are able to make really good looking large homes, a shout out to you because I cannot do that, nor am I willing to learn how to do it. And this was my bedroom, uh, which I actually kept for an older sim, so maybe like a teenager, uh, where I use the current arrangement that my mom has put the room in, where she's put a bed in the corner and then placed a little dresser. I put a lot of posters on the wall because even now my own place, my bedroom has a ton of posters everywhere. And I put a game console in each of the bedrooms because like I said, like my entire family's a bunch of nerds, so we all had like a secondhand game console in our rooms. I would have one now in my apartment, but I've moved it out to the living room, so my roommates just kind of have to live with that. And I really cluttered up the floor of this room because I really wanted it to mimic how bad my bedroom is in real life. And also, I felt like if a teenager's living here, it feels more realistic for the room to be just an absolute disaster. I mean, it's probably one of those kids that their mom's always telling them to clean up. I didn't have like any decorations in my room when I was younger, other than even now, other than posters. I have like a whiteboard calendar that I write my school projects down on, but you know. Now I try to make this room a little more crowded as well, but it's kind of small. It's replicating my brother's room. So there was only so crowded I could make it before it was just like, oh, this sucks. But Again, if you do want to have like younger Sims in it, this is still a really good sized house to put Sims in without making it too crowded. And again, I put posters up on the wall there. I put a couple science posters in the room that was supposed to be mine because I ended up going to university for science, so I was really into it. And I thought, I don't know, maybe we could have a kid with like the mental aspiration, or a teenager with one of the genius aspirations, the ones that give them the nerd brain perk. And this is about it for the house. I do put some more clutter in it, some more decoration. I do not show the landscaping like I said earlier, but you'll see that in the screenshots because I had realized that this build had already gone on for like an hour and a half. And I managed to cut the footage down so it only had an hour, but it was a lot of footage and it had taken me a long time to do this, but it did get approved by my mom. She thought it was really good, and there's the architecture paintings I put in every single one of my builds, kind of like a fingerprint. But if you want this build, then you can find it under the hashtag probablylee, like all of my builds are, and you feel free to download it and give me a like. Uh, and if you guys want to subscribe, that would be really great. If not, that's cool too. And just have a great day, guys. All right.